Marvin Harrison will not participate at Pro Day, and Ryan Day will not be the running backs coach. We know those two facts. We will discover more for the next hour right here at Buckeyes Live, right here at the Voice of College Football. Hope you set your alarm. Hope you got your notification. We are just a bit early, so these guys can get off to cover Pro Day. We've got Steve Hellwagon right next to me, Bucknuts 247 Sports. On the other side, Tony Gerdeman, Buckeye Weekly is the podcast that is more than weekly, so lock in there. And then, of course, BuckeyeHuddle.com. Guys, how we doing today?
Doing good.
Doing good.
So, Tony, as you mentioned, Ryan Day met with the media. I heard most of it. I like the part where he talked about getting around to the various position groups, rescheduling his day so he can sit in on more meetings and that sort of thing, be more of a holistic approach guy from his spot. Your thoughts about what he had to say?
You know, honestly, I thought yesterday was as upbeat as we've seen him in a while, and that could just be a product of coming off of spring break and wanting to get back at it, and that's your first day in pads, and so it's a different kind of atmosphere. But he seemed to be in a really good mood, especially when he knew the topic to start the day was going to be Tony Alford and losing a coach to Michigan. But he approached it pretty well, and talked about how people have to make their the decisions that are best for them. But Ohio State's going to move on and not going to look back or be worried about any information that he's taking to Michigan because things are so early. Because somebody asked, I think Dave Biddle from 24/7 asked, "Are you concerned about Tony Alford taking your playbook essentially to Michigan?" And he said it was 2 practices. We're just starting to look at stuff and do stuff. Chip had only thrown in a couple of things, and you also have to figure out what your guys can do, especially what your quarterbacks can do. That dictates so much of your offense anyway, and so that's all still to be determined well in the future. So I don't think there's any concerns there, but overall just an upbeat Dave from Day, who is now the temporary substitute running backs coach, and he's had some fun there. And I think it's honestly a pretty good move by him to be hands-on with the position group most affected by this departure, so he can be there to talk with them, to get them through this. And then he also said they are going to be part of the decision-making process on the new coach, the new position coach. They'll be involved in some meetings. They'll meet with the candidates and be part of it. It's still going to be Day's decision. He'll get feedback from Chip Day and Chip Kelly and the players. But I think he's kind of empowering the players to help him in this decision, but also being there for them as they go through this change.
Well, based on their background and based on their working relationship and what it sounds like it's going to be in the future, we could possibly go with Chip Day and Ryan Kelly possibly at times. Because it does sound like Chip Kelly is going to have a large hand, not just in the offense, but in these type of decisions.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it and, they have 2 great offensive coaches there, Chip Kelly and Ryan Day, and now they're both hands-on with the athletes, and I think that can only be a good thing. Ryan Day obviously coaching running backs for the first time in forever, so that's good, I think, for him and for those running backs to develop that type of rapport with the head coach. I think it's very important. So I think they're going to make the best of the situation. It's not what anybody wanted, believe me. I did not get to go yesterday. I've been dealing with a little bit of the flu, and so I've been kind of struggling on this end. But, everything that I heard yesterday, it sounded like he's taken to this and really making, his point to do the best job he can for the running backs until they get somebody in there. How soon will they get somebody in there? It could be, maybe next week. Hard to say. You hear talk that DeMarco Murray may be coming in from Oklahoma to interview for the job, and he's the favorite to get the job. So, we'll see if that all pans out, that maybe he steps right in later this week or early next week, and he's the guy. I mean, it's jarring to see photos of Tony Alford already on the field working at Michigan. And you're just like, man, life does truly come at you very fast. So, and I found that out this week. Just super being got smoted down a little bit. So we'll just put it like that.
You threw up one of the comments from Matthew Miller about wishing we landed an NFL guy with the ability to recruit like Brian Hartline or Tim Moulton. Ryan Day talked about the importance of this guy being the new running backs coach, being a recruiter, a talented recruiter. But he also said there doesn't necessarily need to be a track record of recruiting. You need the best guy for the job. And then he cited himself as a guy who had no really track record of recruiting at Ohio State, and also Brian Hartline having no track record recruiting at Ohio State. And both of those two have done pretty well recruiting. So you want to find the best fit, but obviously recruiting is going to be a huge aspect of that, especially at a place like Ohio State when you want to feature running backs. And right now you've got a former 5-star in Travion Henderson in there and a lowly 3-star in Quinshon Judkins trying to fight his way up the depth chart. But yeah, you look at, you mentioned DeMarco Murray. He's had a pretty good history of recruiting at Oklahoma, landed some big time guys. But I think there's a number of options out there. This is obviously a strange time to be dealing with this, but Day did not seem concerned at all. And we've heard him in the past, and you can tell when there's concern in his voice about some things, like last spring, talking about the offensive line. Like you can pick up on some of these concerns. I didn't pick up on any of that this time, talking about the running backs coach.
And talking about the offensive line, not much to go on there. They just put the helmets on, but he was very impressed with Josh Fryer's off season in regards to getting himself in shape and prepared to physically be a better player. All right, everyone, we appreciate you being here at Buckeyes Live, right here at the Voice of College Football. We'll take your comments and questions, of course. We've got Steve here. We've got Tony here. Please lock in on their work. Bucknuts 247 Sports for Steve, and, of course, BuckeyeHuddle.com for Tony, and the Buckeye Weekly podcast. When was the last time you guys got together, Tony?
We dropped an episode yesterday after the day presser. We did a live show, and so that is available on all of your podcast platforms of choice, and also youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle.
There you go. I don't know if you guys noticed, there is a certain left tackle that's on the market now.
Well,
it doesn't sound like he's on the market anymore.
Well, no, it doesn't. But I know that there might have been a glimmer of hope out there.
And here's the thing. Everybody is taking all the little drips and drabs that you've got, the social media posts and the whispers and this, that, the other, and they have run with it full bore. And, here's Iowa. Poor, lowly Iowa. They were spurned by the kid once, went to Alabama, played, and then for whatever reason, when, of course, Nick Saban, retires, says, well, I'll go back home to Iowa and play my next 2 years, gets a hero's welcome. Somebody said he was doing car commercials within a couple of weeks of his return to Iowa. Quote, unquote, took all this money, which – no documentation. We don't know if he got a dime. We don't know if he got $1,000. We don't know what he got. Took all this Iowa NIL money and left. Hasn't paid it back. I mean, bull crap. How would anybody know this guy's personal whatever? And, he spurned us again. And it's just like, Jesus, God, grow up. I mean, this is 2024, and this is where it's at. And this, again, hit the reset button. This is what the presidents and the athletic directors brought upon themselves from the moment California passed that law 5 years ago, and they just continue to kick the can down the road and never dealt with it. And now look what you got. Look what you got. People are going to be running away from these sports in record fashion, although it doesn't seem to be. The controversy seems to be driving more interest in this stuff, even as people are just disgusted and turn their heads from it. They can't stop watching it. The TV ratings just keep going up and up and up. So, add this to the list of BS incidents number 234 of I can't believe this is possible. I can't believe this is happening, but it definitely is. And I feel bad for the Iowa people. They got taken once, they got taken twice, and the kid goes on spring break with his former teammates from Alabama and says, damn, it's cold in Iowa during the winter. Damn, they work us hard up here. God, we're only going to be 8-4. God, our offense is going to, bro, your offense is going to suck. Your offense always suck. I mean, just it writes itself. I mean, everyone knows what happened. Then they twisted his arm and he's back to Alabama. So, it's interesting to me. Does he just stop going to class at Iowa and out? Credits, Schmedits, who needs credits? Whatever.
I think that is
whole thing's a mess.
I think the one rule that the NCAA still has, whether they can force it or not, is you still have to have the academic requirements to transfer, even though they've gotten rid of the need to sit out. If you're a multi-time transfer, you still need to be like on course and in school. But as you guys talk about Iowa, the way they're being treated, it reminds me of the way Jenny treats Forrest Gump. She just keeps going off, and then he welcomes her back, and poor Iowa.
Now this is where we need Noon to go. You've heard it a million times. Jenny. This is where we need Noon.
I love you, Kadyn. But I also am not going to get upset about this because pay for play does not exist. It's not a thing. It's not supposed to be a thing. So if somebody wants to go take money from Iowa and then leave, go do it. I don't have to go play for Iowa to accept money from an Iowa collective. Come on. What are we talking about here? I thought we were on the up and up. This is just you wanting me to help your brand. This isn't about me playing for your favorite football team. This is about me helping a charity. Your car dealership has nothing to do with me going and playing for a football team. So why are you upset? Why is a collective upset? Why can't I continue to, help you out? My image is still, I'm still well known. I'll be in Alabama.
One of the most famous athletes ever to come from Iowa. I'm not Caitlin Clark, but
so like I can't get upset. And I do think you definitely have collectives talking to outlets and to reporters, and they do get mad because they are investing in this player for obvious reasons. And so when somebody turns their back on them, they don't like that. People with money do not like when that happens to them, and they'll reach out and share their side of the story, accurate, inaccurate, whatever. But this is part of the new world now. And so, yeah, you're not always going to get in the financial details because it's still private. These are private citizens, but you will get some dirt, and you don't necessarily want to scorn some of these collectives or things like that. But again, go be happy, go do what you want. You're not tied to any place. You can go play wherever you want, whenever you want, for almost how many years. I'm waiting for somebody to challenge the fact that, no, I'm going to stay here for 6 years. I'm going to stay here for 7 years. I'll get my lawyers, and the NCAA is going to be like, we got enough problems. Just go ahead and keep playing. It's like the 30-year-olds that hang out at the frat houses every week. They're just never going to leave.
This falls into the category. I worked for a guy, we'll call him Mr. Bucknuts, the guy who started our website in 1998, Mr. Bucknuts. And his primary businesses were grocery and payday lending. You go in and you get an advance on your paycheck, and then you go back a week later and you pay it off at an exorbitant. I borrow $300 and I pay them back $350 or whatever. Exorbitant interest rate. And he said a lot of what they did, they had to get the laws through the state legislature. And he says, when I buy my politicians, I prefer that they stay bought, was his line that he would use from time to time. And, they'd come back to him and say, well, we can't pass that law the way you want it to look. Well, the same premise has kind of come up here with Kadyn Proctor. They bought him to come back to Iowa, and he did not stay bought. So, we.
It looks like we're frozen up. No,
Yeah.
I think we're back.
There we are.
We
Keep
back.
going, Steve.
I'm doing good. And the other thing, this was kind of funny. This isn't even necessarily part of this discussion, but I always wondered how serious he was about, quote, buying politicians. Well, I got a call from Ohio State Trademark and Licensing one day saying that we couldn't use the name Bucknuts after we'd been using it for 6 years.
Oh, we are waiting in suspense again. That could be me having the issue here. That is possible.
I hear you. I can still hear you. So after 6 years, they came and said, you can't use this name. And you guys, Tony, at the Ozone had the same problems. And I was like, well, how politically connected is this guy? He called his friend, quote unquote, let's call him the Speaker of the House of the Ohio legislature. He dropped a lightning bolt out of the sky on the licensing people at Ohio State. Never heard another word from him. Never heard another word. So it is a true fact. You can get things done if you're in the pocket of powerful people. So that's a good lesson to understand, I guess.
There would possibly be no way that I could ever get flagged for anything like that in regards to naming rights or any kind of connection.
No.
There. But, we'll carry on with our naming convention at this point. All right, folks, appreciate you being here. Buckeyes Live, right here at the Voice of College Football. I could go on about Kadyn Proctor. We'll leave that alone because it is a done deal.
Hey,
And,
I saw him at
he's back
the
to
camp. They had a camp there at Obet's like 3 years ago, and he came in for it. I'll tell you what, and he obviously started 14 games at Alabama, and they made the playoff, won the SEC. He must left tackle. He must be pretty good. I mean, if he did that, he's kind of. Did they really have two true freshmen starting, Tony? Is this really the case? Is that Downs and Proctor? I mean,
yeah. Now Proctor
nuts.
gave up a ton of sacks this past year. You would expect him to get better, but I almost went back and looked to see what the Alabama fans' thoughts were initially when he left. Probably some good riddance. You were terrible, and now when he comes back, it's like, oh, this is best day ever. But that's part of the fun of college football.
Only we can crap on our own pledges. You can't crap on our pledges, but we can crap on our pledges. It was funny. Last night was a microcosm of this fan base. Ohio State's trailing Cornell in the NIT in the second half, and people are jumping off buildings. And I'm like, first of all, and I don't believe this for the coaches and the players in the game, but for the other, how many people are on earth now? About 6 billion. For the other 6 billion of us, the NIT is as meaningless as anything can be. When they won it in 2008, Thad Matta said, this is great. Let's never, ever effing do this again, is what he said. That was an honest to God quote. He told the guys in the locker room, this is great. Let's never effing do it again. So, it's all about getting experience for the young players. People like they hired the wrong coach. Blah, 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 blah. And just like, God, have some perspective, people. Have some perspective on life. It isn't supposed to be like this.
Well, if they were really that invested and angry, more than 4,500 people would have shown up for the game. So,
yeah, somebody told me this kills the momentum of the program. A game that was played in front of 4,500 people live, and maybe, Mark, you're a TV person, maybe 200,000 people watched it on ESPN2. Maybe. Give me a freaking break. Nobody cares. It's just for the guys playing in the game to get more. 4 freshmen, 4 sophomores, for them to play and get more experience. And you know what? They had to gut out a win in the final minute. They are so much the better for that experience, the way it came down. And now they get to go play another Power 5 team with Virginia Tech on Saturday or Sunday. You talk about this is a no-lose proposition. You can lose the game by 15 points, you still gain something from it.
I'm not even asking those people on Twitter to gain real life perspective. Just have you ever watched a sporting event before? It's every Saturday in the football season. Somebody takes a 10-0 lead and the other team's trash, and this game's over. And it's like, have you ever watched a college football game before?
60-minute game. And in this case, it was a 40-minute game, and I've seen it 1,000 times. In the 30th minute, Ohio State started to pull it together. Now, I know they had to hit a shot in the final minute to ultimately win the game, but the cream eventually rose to the top, just like it typically will in most instances. I mean, it's not every time. It's not fail-safe. I mean, there have been upsets before, but, I mean, and there's going to be, and this tournament's going to be ripe with them, coming up starting tomorrow. But, I mean, I don't know. We could go on and on about things people, Ohio State football, let's think about what's really important in life. And that is, just improving your position incrementally so that you're in position when the time comes.
We have Mika and others wanting some intel on new offensive line offers. Also, who could possibly be close to committing. Anything there?
Well, TJ Alford, the linebacker, is announcing on the 30th. So that is coming up. That's 10 days away. Top 100 linebacker. Saw him at Ohio State last June. Obviously, Ohio State really, really likes him. He likes Ohio State. I think
he's supposed to visit maybe this weekend, isn't he?
He may be.
That's what we had on our calendar. He was coming in on the 23rd. So if that's truly the case, that is a good indication that Ohio State could get one of the last entrees with him, and he would be a big one because linebacker is an area where I don't want to say they've been talent deficient, but they haven't had a Shazier in going on 15 years now. So it's time to get back to having All-American linebackers at Ohio State. It's been way too long.
Well, and even out-of-state linebackers has been something that Ohio State hasn't been getting until Peyton Pierce this past year. And I think before that, you had to go back to maybe 2018 or so with like the Taraji Mitchell and Kayvon Pope class. So
Taraji P.
So it's and now with James Laurinaitis being the full-time guy, you would expect him to start doing better. That's the idea. That's the thought, because they've come up second or third on some national linebackers over Jim Knowles' time as the defensive coordinator and linebackers coach. So maybe with Laurinaitis in there now, able to get on a plane and go and check with people, maybe things will start picking up there. But Laurinaitis and Alfred have a very good relationship.
All right, folks, the Amazon link's in the description section of all the videos. When you shop Amazon, please use that link. It's transparent to you, doesn't cost you a penny. All right, Pro Day. Tony, you're heading out to check out not necessarily just everybody that's eligible for the NFL draft this year, but doing a little reverse scouting on your part.
Yeah, Will Howard and Devin Brown, the Ohio State quarterbacks, will be throwing for the Ohio State draft eligible players who will be working out, which will not include Marvin Harrison, but will include Xavier Johnson, Cade Stover, Mayan Williams, some former Buckeyes. I believe Sam Wiglusz is supposed to be there as well, the OU, Ohio University wide receiver. So it is always interesting. Every year they'll have some current Buckeyes just fill things out, or even some past former Buckeyes. I think we've seen Troy Smith and Cardale Jones throw at Pro Day a couple of years after their time. And we saw Brian Hartline in maybe like 2017, 2018 running routes on Pro Day, 2018, 2019, running routes for whatever quarterback at that time, maybe Dwayne Haskins, I don't even remember. But getting to see Devin Brown and Will Howard unleash it, because they do throw a bunch of different routes, and we've only seen them throw basic routes in practice in the 2 days that we've seen, like little out routes and flare passes. So we'll get to see them really throw the ball 50 yards down the field and make all of the necessary judgments on who should be starting, who should be playing, who is terrible, and who is not. And God forbid they both look poor, because then Ohio State fans will begin to panic. But yeah, we'll get to go see that, and not a huge exciting day of pro day, and it's never all that productive, because Ohio State doesn't necessarily tell you anything. You've got to track guys down. Guys aren't necessarily willing to tell you how they did if they did not do well. So it's kind of chaotic. But sometimes you can grab people and get some information from them. But it is some chaos going on once this whole thing ends at like 3:00 this afternoon.
Yeah, I think there's 9 Ohio State guys who are going to be there. Marvin allegedly could appear. He's not done many or any interviews, so I think it'll be interesting. I saw something today where they're trying to move the LSU guy ahead of him. My daughter saw a mock where he, quote unquote, fallen to number 4 behind 3 quarterbacks. And I'm like, well, quarterbacks are where it's at. I mean, that's where everybody wants to put all the eggs in their basket, and the wide receivers are kind of dime a dozen. I mean, just look at the Browns. They swap out their wide receiver core just about every year. So to me, I think he's got great value. I think he's got tremendous value. I think he's a guy that's going to play 12 or 14 years in the league if he's healthy and play at a very high level. And he's going to do well wherever he goes. I don't have any doubt about that. He's a professional. He works at it so hard. And, he's going to outwork the competition. And that's what you have to do in the NFL. That's how Heartline made it 7 or 8 years. You just grind and you outwork the competition. And so, I don't worry about him. I look at people like Eichenberg and Chambers and Proctor and Matthew Jones. I mean, these are 4 guys there that, are just kind of there and really need to do something to differentiate themselves from the rest of the group. I think Eichenberg's probably a mid-round pick. The rest of them are all late-round picks if they get drafted. Mine, with his health situation, I don't think he's going to get drafted. I think he's not working out or anything. So he had a really bad condition with the cartilage in his knee that required surgery, I believe. So he's going to be hoping to latch on somewhere as an undrafted free agent, get healthy, and then maybe by the start of preseason camp be able to do some things. So hope all's well for him. Stover will be interesting to watch today because he's a man's man. He'll probably go out there and he's going to break a sweat today. I have a good guess. He's going to get a little dirty there on the field turf inside the Woody Hayes Center, and going to show some people what he can do. So I'm interested, as Tony said, to watch Brown and Howard throw to him, as well as Xavier Johnson. I think Xavier Johnson could be a great special teams player in the NFL, maybe a returner, hard to say. But, don't sleep on Xavier Johnson. He's going to be a great undrafted free agent for somebody with a chance to make a team if something fell that way. So a lot of guys out there. Mike Hall, defensive tackle. As he put it at the combine, he's going pro because he had to. In his mind, he had to. He had a kid, needed to start providing for his kid. And that can be a tough situation for a young guy to be put into, but he's approaching it like, this is my job. This is my life now. This is what I have to do for my family. And I think we've only seen him kind of scratch the surface. I mean, if you look at the box score and see over 2 years, he had like 8 tackles for loss or something. I mean, like very, very, he had one great game there a couple of years ago, and it just hasn't been a lot of what we consider production, on a piece of paper that you can see. He hadn't been available a lot, but I think he's a guy that, if healthy, mid-round pick, take a chance, hope he's healthy, and, hope that he can do this. Tommy Togi, I tried this, 2 or 3 years ago, lasted 2 or 3 years. I don't even know if he's still on a team anymore. The Browns had him for a couple of years. So, kind of the Tommy Togi path here, where one more year at Ohio State would have really helped him potentially. And we'll see if Hall can do better.
I know Michael had really did really some good things in the Senior Bowl practices and impressed a lot of people there. So with his quickness, it's always going to impress people. But yeah, like the bulk of his production at Ohio State in terms of statistics came against in 2 games, Notre Dame and Michigan State in like 2022, and they just he hasn't been able to replicate that. But there's no denying his quickness, and so there are going to be some teams that really really like him and maybe take I've seen possibilities of him even sneaking into the second round if there's and you want that guy. I think Xavier Johnson, he didn't get invited to the combine, so this is his combine. This is his opportunity to get seen by all of the NFL teams and up close and talk to them, because I guarantee if you talk to him, you're going to love the guy. And now he I think he still holds the record for the player with the longest interview session of about 45 minutes one time, just because people kept talking to him and he didn't want to leave. You're not going to have that much time with the NFL teams, but that's a guy that he's just reliable. And I think coaches really like that.
No doubt.
Yeah, wouldn't it be great? And wouldn't it be just like Xavier Johnson for us to see him still in the league like 7 or 8 years from now, just kind of kicking around from team to team, playing some special
Somebody
teams?
mentioned Nate Ebner's name in there with him, and I'd see the same thing. Just a guy who ingratiates himself, becomes part of the fit and the culture of whatever team he goes to. And in the second or third year, he's out there for the coin toss as the special teams captain. I mean, it's just the way it's going to go. I mean, you can just predict it. Some people have the makeup to do this. And, as I say with Mickey Marotti, some do, some don't. So
on a 53-man roster, that guy has 3 different players. He can help you as a receiver, he can help you as a running back, and he can help you on special teams. So that allows you to carry one more guy somewhere else.
Yep.
And maybe some kind of baling hay exercise could be implemented to get Kate Stover to work up that sweat.
Yeah, I want that guy from the Detroit Free Press to show up today and ask him about losing to Michigan. I want that'd be something. That'd be great. I already know I don't like you. That was priceless.
All right, folks, we've got about 10 minutes with these two here at the Voice of College Football. If you've got any comments and questions concerning the Buckeyes, of course. Trying to think what else was on my mind coming out of this.
I'll throw one other thing out there because it used to be a topic of discussion, and that's the special teams coordinator at Ohio State and how that's going to break down. And Day talked about that yesterday, how he's given different coaches, he's just splitting it up amongst the coaches. Like, I forget the exact breakdown, but two coaches get the punt return and kickoff return. The other 2 coaches get punt and kickoff coverage. And he said he got the idea from Jim Tressel. So it's sort of what Jim Tressel used to do. So, Ryan Day called a bunch of coaches, and that's what he called up Jim Tressel, and that's what Tressel told him. Said they sounded like a good idea because, for one, a lot of times the special teams coordinator, he said sometimes they're like the low man on a totem pole in terms of players buying in. But when it's your position coach or a position coach, especially if it's your position coach coaching something, you're always trying to impress your position coach, and you're always trying to do good by them so that you can get on the field. And so the players then take these things more seriously. Not that they haven't done it at Ohio State for a long time, but even more so now. Like, if your position coach is coaching you on punt coverage, you're going to want to do everything you can to impress that. And Ryan Day's more involved, so you're trying to impress the head coach as well. So they're planning to get more out of that this year. I still would like to see them, hey, why not try to utilize the return game, especially on kickoffs, instead of just fair catching everything? I know it's crazy.
Well, he definitely called the right guy, so he knew who to call.
Yep. Tressel. He's Mr. Special Teams. He's like, we're going to be good on offense, but we're going to be elite on defense and special teams was kind of his motif. And boy, he was about right. So.
Well, the first, within his first couple of months as head coach, Jim Tressel, he commissioned a wind study in Ohio Stadium for punting purposes. Like, where are the winds at this time of day, this time of year, so that he can figure out exactly how to punt. The punting issue is also interesting because Day was asked about his punter. He's like, well, he couldn't quite talk about somebody they're bringing in Nick McClarty because he's a 2024 kid from Australia who they're recruiting, but you can't talk about them because there's no letter of intent signed or he's not enrolled yet. So he had to be careful there. And he just said, we've got a couple of guys on the team and maybe more later this season. So they will have 2 Australian punters, so they should be just fine. I mean, you got 2. I mean, you should be okay.
The Aussie or the Aussie?
Just like last year, they had 2, and look, they were just fine.
That's right. Hey, bloke, just bang that thing down there, and we're going to go down there, and we're going to cover it. There you go. That's your job. And don't piss off the Rutgers coach by freelancing and trying to get a first down
Yeah.
when we're up 50.
Never piss off anybody from New Jersey if you know what's going on.
No mistake. He came all the way to the other sideline, and the shot of Day, the pictures of Day yelling back at him. Just imagine the language that was being used between these good friends. Whatever. The guy he didn't retain when he took over as the head coach, but they're good friends. Sure. Right.
All right. David Greenshield, appreciate you being here, man. Any more news on Will Howard or Devin Brown?
They're quarterbacks. They're
Yes, I don't know that we have any news. I don't know if that's the right terminology, David, but we get you. Any further updates on their progress? Again, it's so incredibly early.
Yeah, they're both still going through the same rotation and reps that they were in the first 2 practices. This is 3 practices in. Pads just went on, so still all very early and very preliminary. And even when we talk to Day again in a couple of weeks, he'll get to the point where he's like, well, we're still evaluating. After spring is when we come up for air, and nobody's going to be ahead of anybody at that point. And even if they were, he wouldn't say it. But at this point, it's really too early. That's why I'm just interested in going and seeing them at Pro Day and seeing them really throw the ball downfield. Now, there's no coverage or anything like that, but still, we haven't even seen them really uncork anything. So this will be a good opportunity to do that.
There has to be a special kind of different sort of pressure to do that. Even though it's not your job, you're not competing in practice to basically make your teammates look good and throw the ball on time and in the right spots because there are NFL scouts there.
Oh, no doubt. And they're there to, I guess one of the national NFL people wrote that Ohio State's Pro Day will be as least attended as any that they've ever had. No head coaches and no general managers are expected to attend today, which is just absolutely unbelievable. So I can't imagine anything like that has ever happened in the last 30 years. So it's kind of interesting, but there will be people from all the teams, and they're going to want to perform well, no doubt.
And a few people may show up next year.
Well, I think I could look really quickly, like the 1980 or 1998 Ohio draft. Ohio State had like nobody drafted in 98. So that's because they're all sophomores in 97.
Yeah.
And we're very, very good in 98 as the number 1 team in the nation for most of that season. Now you had a bunch of juniors come back as seniors. So next year should be their year in terms of the NFL draft. And I'm guessing a lot of people will be there. Although you're also seeing more and more coaches and GMs not going to combines, not going to pro days, and relying more on seeing the games in person or just the film and or interviews when they come in or private workouts. And it's interesting. I think it's kind of like once we all went to Zoom a few years ago, we realized we don't need to be in person everywhere to do stuff. And, you can work from home even as a GM or a coach.
Yep, it works just the same.
While Alabama has open doors to be taking back former players, you guys know better than I do what the rumor out there is concerning Caleb Downs making a similar decision.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect. Yeah, Caleb Downs went to Alabama for Nick Saban. So unless Nick Saban is coming back,
April Fool's Day joke 11 days too soon, I think, is what that seemed to me. Or
Yeah,
12
so
days too soon.
I think they'll be okay there. But again, it's NIL, it's portal. Like there are no definites. You can just feel pretty good that somebody's going to stay where they are, but there's no such thing as a definite anymore.
All right, Steve, we hope you continue to feel better. What's going on there at Bucknuts?
Well, obviously, the pro days today, Patrick Murphy will be there for us. Tomorrow, there are more interviews. Tony, did we get an idea of who is going to be speaking tomorrow? Have you heard anything?
Brian Hartline, Tim Walton, and a collection of players that don't know yet, but we're all putting in requests. So we'll be surprised.
Awesome. Yeah, that'll be good. So that'll be some more insight into the program tomorrow. I think this is when you start to get a little bit more information and little drips and drabs of guys who are starting to really make a little bit of a run for themselves. So that's coming up tomorrow. I think it's a week from Saturday. We get to go to practice and watch. It's usually a pretty good scrimmage situation with a lot of goal line and third down and different things happening. So that's one that we're kind of pointing toward a week from Saturday to get an eyeball, actual live football, watching these guys play and really get a sense for who is in the mix and who isn't. So that's probably the biggest thing on the horizon just coming up as far as I'm concerned. I mean, my goodness, I'm going to be covering the women's team plays Maine on Friday. The men's team plays Virginia Tech on Saturday. I might buzz down to the state basketball tournament. There's some key prospects down there. And there's never a dull moment here at Team Bucknuts. So there you go.
I don't partake of too much media outside of what I do, not because there aren't exceptional people out there, because there definitely are. But I guess I get my fill in terms of what I do. And then I just want to hear other stuff, other topics, other subjects, and that sort of thing when I'm not. But if I do, and I have a number of times here recently, the Buckeye Weekly podcast is an exceptional resource, Ohio State fans. So get on over there. Tony, what is going on this week?
Yeah, at the podcast, we will do another one tomorrow, maybe live after interviews, and just recap some things that we heard, some things that were said, what we believed, what we didn't, things like that. And I'll have more from Ryan Day. I'll be writing some stuff from that, and of course, from interviews tomorrow. So you can check that out at BuckeyeHuddle.com.
Folks, these people have been here. Steve, Tony, Kevin, most of the time, all the time, reliable. So we hope you appreciate their work here and at their respective platforms. Tony, Steve, you guys have a great week. Enjoy Pro Day, and we'll see you next week.